Home Secretary Priti Patel has condemned what she called utterly vile scenes in South London, in which 15 police officers were injured last night. The Metropolitan Police say they have been called to investigate reports of a large unlicensed street party, but the scene descended into violence when they tried to encourage the crowd to leave.
Well, in terms of this disorder, it was serious and sustained for a while. The police came under a hail of missiles, bottles, bricks, other items that were thrown at officers as they tried to deal with this disorder. At times they had to pull back and regroup because they weren't in, at that time, their public order kit, wearing helmets and carrying shields and the like, because the disorder that broke out was fairly rapid.
Russians are voting on proposed changes to their country's constitution. If the amendments are passed, they could allow President Vladimir Putin to remain in power until 2036, and that's 12 years after his current term ends in 2024. Voting will continue until July 1st to avoid overcrowding and reduce the risk of spreading the coronavirus. Other precautions are being taken, such as physical distancing at voting sites.
Qantas has announced it's cutting 6,000 jobs as it embarks on a massive round of cost savings in order to survive the ravages of COVID-19. Around 100 aircraft will also be mothballed as it prepares for its post-pandemic recovery.
And the Qantas boss has outlined a 3-year plan to recover from COVID-19. Now, at its centre is a 20% cut in jobs. That's 6,000 Qantas workers to go. Chief Executive Alan Joyce says the cuts will occur across Qantas and Jetstar, affecting cabin crew, maintenance workers, pilots, head office workers. The strategy is for a smaller airline. Part of that strategy is to store up to 100 planes. Now, they may remain in storage for up to 3 years. That's how long Qantas expects it will take for international flights to fully recover.
South Africa's rand edged lower in early trading on Thursday after a grim budget speech forecasting ballooning debt and a higher government deficit. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni warned that the budget deficit would widen to a record 14.6% of gross domestic product in 2020 to 2021, the highest in the post-apartheid era. And public debt was projected to be more than 3/4 of GDP. Mboweni compared debts in Africa's most advanced economy to a hippopotamus.
Our Herculean task is to close the mouth of the hippopotamus, that gap between revenue and the ever-increasing expenditure.
Well, what started as a movement against Confederate symbols now expanding to other historical figures, including former presidents like Jackson and Roosevelt.
And as calls for removal grow louder, our next guest vows to protect one of the most iconic monuments in the world, Mount Rushmore.
All right, joining us now is South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Governor, we were thinking about you because it seems like all our monuments and tributes to the past are under a microscope. Are you concerned that you're going to be Mount Rushmore is going to be the subject of protest or defilement?
You know, it certainly could be, and we've seen some activity online where people have made threats to that. What my message is that this is no longer about equality. This is a radical rewriting of our history, and in South Dakota, we won't stand for it. This is a national monument. The more we focus on the flaws of these men that are on our mountain, the less likely we are to recognize the virtues and the lessons we can learn from their lives.
Hammered by inflation at over 100% and plagued by shortages of bread, fuel and medicine, Sudan's future could hinge on a teleconference taking place in the German capital Berlin on Thursday. The country's economy is nearing collapse, a crisis compounded by the coronavirus pandemic, which has diverted the resources of many donors, as well as the spectre of swarms of locusts breeding in neighbouring Kenya. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, running the country under a precarious transitional power-sharing deal with the military, is desperate for quick funds. Without them, analysts say, he could face unrest from people tired of chronic shortages or even a military takeover in a country with a history of coups.
One of the world's most visited places, the Eiffel Tower in France, reopened after a 3-month-long closure due to the coronavirus pandemic. Parisians will be able to witness the grandeur of the Eiffel Tower once again, but this time it will be under severe restrictions and rules to avoid rapid spread of coronavirus in the country. Unlike the usual times, people will be forced to take the stairs instead, using the elevator to get onto the tower. The entry and exit point of the tower will also be at different gates to avoid crowding. And finally, to ensure safety of all visitors, the authorities have blocked the entry of people to the top of the tower till
¡Vamos! ¡Ahora vamos!
Singapore's nationwide 5G networks are set to be powered by technologies from 2 European communication giants, leaving China's Huawei technologies with less significant contracts. The announcement comes as Singtel and a joint venture between StarHub and M1 were issued the final awards for the 2 networks. Singtel is considering the Swedish firm Ericsson in both its nationwide 5G rollout and localized hotspots. The StarHub M1 consortium is looking to use the technology from Finland's Nokia. The telcos are expected to invest billions of dollars to roll out the 5G infrastructure over the next 15 years of their license. The companies have to blanket the entire island with 5G connectivity by 2025.
Unimaginable tragedy in a family's backyard. 3 people were found dead in the above-ground swimming pool. An 8-year-old girl, her 32-year-old mother, and a 62-year-old male relative. Now there's growing speculation that the victims may have been electrocuted while in the water, enjoying a warm summer day in the backyard. This electrician's van was reportedly called to the house after the incident. Authorities haven't confirmed there was an electrical issue. It's an invisible danger. Pools can become electrified, as seen in this surveillance video. Watch as this little girl touches a metal railing and instantly goes limp at an apartment complex in Florida. When her dad touches the railing, he also gets zapped, but somehow manages to grab his daughter and yank her out of the water. Now look back at the railing. There's another little girl floating lifeless underwater. Her grandfather rushes in and risks his life to drag her from the electrified water.